She looks at you with her usual gaze, neutral, distant, as if you were just another piece of the scenery. You wake up every day to the same indifference, to the same job that fails to inspire you, to the same empty conversations that lead nowhere. And when you lie down at night, the question that should be obvious never comes. Why are you even getting out of bed every day? Sartre would say that if you don't know why, you're still sleeping deep inside, living a life that isn't truly yours, following a script someone else wrote for you. Here, you will understand why waking up has become an obligation rather than a choice, and how this has transformed you into the invisible man you've become. If you've ever woken up questioning whether this is all there is, leave a comment. No explanation needed. One word is enough. And if you know someone who also lives on autopilot, share this. It might be the push they need to awaken. Coffee, phone, work, traffic, television, sleep. Repeat. You've become a perfect automaton, performing tasks with military precision, but feeling nothing. It's as if your life were controlled by a remote. And the worst part? You no longer even notice. Routine has anesthetized you completely. You wake up because the alarm rings. Go to work because it's Monday. Chat because someone initiated the conversation. But at no point do you choose to be there. Your existence boils down to reacting to external stimuli. Like a laboratory rat that learned the way to the cheese, Sartre called this bad faith. You act as if you have no choice, when in reality, you're constantly choosing not to choose. You're choosing to live in automatic mode. You're choosing to be led through life rather than leading it. And the result is this feeling of emptiness you try to fill with anything. Series, drinks, relationships, shopping. Anything that makes you forget you have no idea why you're here. That you have no idea who you really are when no one's watching. That you have no idea what you want when they stop telling you what to do. The problem isn't just waking up without purpose. The problem is that you've gotten used to it, normalized it. Sartre used the term bad faith to describe exactly that. When you lie to yourself about your own freedom, when you pretend you have no choice so you don't have to take responsibility for choosing, it's easier to blame circumstances. It's easier to just say that life is simply that way. It's easier to accept emptiness than to face the brutal work of creating meaning, because crafting meaning hurts. It demands that you look at your current life and acknowledge that much of it has been squandered. It requires you to stop being a victim and become the protagonist. It calls for you to take responsibility, recognizing that everything you are today is the result of your choices, even the choice to not choose. Self-deception is comfortable. It allows you to live without anguish, without questioning, without the terrible burden of being free. But the cost is high. The price is a life devoid of color, of intensity, of truth. A life you lead as a spectator, not as the author. And in the end, when you look back, you'll realize you were never truly alive, just functioning, like a well-programmed machine that executed all tasks, but never understood why it was doing them. When did you stop asking why? Remember when you were a child, questioning everything? Why is the sky blue? Why do adults work so much? Why are some people sad? You had an insatiable thirst to understand the world. Every answer generated 10 new questions. You didn't accept things just because someone said they were true. In your youth, you had dreams, plans, visions of what you could become. The world seemed full of possibilities. You believed you could change something, make a difference, live intensely and authentically. But something happened along the way. The questions were replaced by chores. The dreams were replaced by obligations. Curiosity was replaced by haste. And you stopped questioning. You stopped dreaming. You stopped imagining other possibilities for your life. You accepted what was given, settled for the minimum, swapped intensity for security. And now, years later, you wake up every day, living a life you don't remember choosing, a life that seems to have been chosen for you, not by you, a life that works on paper but has no soul, no fire, no genuine you, just a domesticated, predictable, safe version of who you could have been. Sartre said that human beings are condemned to freedom. It's not a blessing. It's a curse. Because with freedom comes complete responsibility for your existence. You can't blame God, your parents, society, or circumstances. You are the only one responsible for who you become. And that terrifies most people. It's much easier to live as if you were merely a product of circumstances, acting as if you have no choice, as if your life is dictated by external forces beyond your control. But Sartre shatters this illusion. He demonstrates that even in extreme situations, you still possess choices, always. The choice of how to react, how to interpret, how to move forward, and most importantly, the choice to create meaning. Because meaning isn't given, it doesn't arrive prepackaged, it isn't discovered, it is forged by you, through your choices, through your values, through what you decide is important. Existentialism offers no ready-made answers. Instead, it presents something far more perilous, the awareness that you are free to craft your own responses. And that freedom can be daunting because it means you have no excuses. It means your empty life is your responsibility. It means if you want to wake up with purpose, you must create it. How do you reclaim the reason for being here? First, stop pretending you have no choice. Cease acting as a victim of circumstances. Stop waiting for someone to hand you a manual on how to live. Second, reconnect with your true values, those that make sense to you when you're alone in the dark, when no one is watching, when there's nothing to gain or lose. Third, redefine what holds significance. Maybe it's not the career you envisioned. Maybe it's not the relationship you idealized. Perhaps it's something entirely different from what you imagined. But it must be yours. It must come from within. It must be a conscious choice, not an accident. Fourth, make deliberate choices every day. Not out of inertia, not because it's Monday, not because someone expects it, but because you've decided that this is what makes sense today. And if tomorrow no longer makes sense, you choose something else because you're alive, because you're aware, because you've taken on the profound and liberating responsibility of being free. And when you do this, when you stop merely surviving and start truly existing, something shifts. You no longer wake up out of obligation. You wake up because there's something you must do, something only you can do, something that makes a difference, something that is yours. If anything I've said so far has touched on something you've always avoided confronting, mark this moment in the comments. It might be just a single word, but it could also mark the beginning of your transformation. And if it resonated with you, leave a like, not for me, but for yourself. I know a guy who has been working at the same company for 15 years. Same position, same desk, same complaints. Every day he wakes up at 6:30, bitter coffee, frustrating traffic, 8 hours of work he could accomplish in his sleep. He returns home exhausted, watches television, falls asleep, repeats. When asked if he enjoys his job, he says it's not a matter of liking, but necessity. When questioned about contemplating a career change, he lists 20 reasons why it's impossible. Age, family, bills, lack of opportunity, economy. He has an answer for everything, except the most crucial question. Why does he choose to live this way? Because he chooses to, every single day. He wakes up and opts to accept the unacceptable, chooses to exchange his life for security, prefers the dreadful familiar over the uncertain potential. And then he complains that life is dull, that nothing interesting happens, that the days all blend together. He created his own prison and threw away the key. Now he lives as if he's a victim of a sentence he himself authored. Sartre would look at him and say, "You're not imprisoned, you're choosing to stay there." The difference is stark. Now, there's another guy. He used to live the same deadening routine, just as empty, just as numbing. But one day, he woke up with a question in his mind. If I die today, what will remain? The answer was frightening. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He wasn't contributing to anything. He wasn't creating anything. He was simply an efficient consumer and obedient employee. That realization hurt. It hurt so much that he could no longer ignore it, no longer pretend everything was okay, no longer live on autopilot. So he began to choose. Small choices at first. waking up half an hour earlier to read something meaningful, saying no to commitments that made no sense, engaging in conversations about things that truly mattered instead of discussing the weather, choosing people who challenged his thinking rather than those who merely confirmed his opinions. Gradually, his life started to gain color, intensity, purpose. Not because he discovered some universal truth, but because he took responsibility for crafting his own reality, choosing his values, defining his criteria for success. He woke up every day knowing why, not because someone handed him a manual, but because he consciously chose what was worthwhile. The difference between these two men isn't in their circumstances, it's in their consciousness. One lives as if he has no choice. The other recognizes that his entire life is made up of choices. One blames the world for his unhappiness. The other takes responsibility for his own happiness. One waits for something to change so he can be happy. The other changes himself to create his happiness. And that difference changes everything. It changes how you wake up. It changes how you work. It changes how you relate to others. It changes how you see the future. Because when you accept that you're free, when you stop pretending to be a victim, when you embrace the daunting responsibility of being the author of your own life, you discover something Sartre always knew. Freedom isn't comfortable, but it's the only thing worth having, because it's the only thing that truly belongs to you, the only thing no one can take away, the only thing that makes you genuinely human instead of just a well-programmed biological machine. How do you put this into practice? How do you break free from autopilot and become the protagonist of your own life? First, you stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending you have no choice. Stop using circumstances as an excuse not to live. Second, you define your true values, not the values society taught you, not the ones that give you status. The values that make sense when you're alone with yourself. Third, you make conscious choices. Every day, every decision, no matter how small. You ask yourself, does this align with who I choose to be? Does this bring me closer to the life I want to create? Is this my choice or just inertia? Fourth, you accept the anxiety that comes with freedom, because choosing requires effort. Taking responsibility hurts. Creating meaning is an ongoing process, not a one-time event. You will question your choices, doubt the path, feel afraid of making mistakes, and that's okay, because at least you're alive. At least you're awake. At least you're being you, not a domesticated, predictable version of who you should be. And when you do this, when you take control of your own narrative, something interesting happens. You stop waking up out of obligation. You wake up because there's something to do, something to create, something to contribute, something that only exists if you exist. And that changes everything. It shifts your posture. It alters your energy. It transforms how others perceive you. It changes how you see yourself. Because you're no longer merely occupying space, you're truly living. So tell me, will you continue to live as if just one more day is enough? Will you keep waking up because the alarm clock went off, working because it's Monday, chatting about irrelevant things, sleeping exhausted from a life you didn't choose? Or will you stop merely surviving and start genuinely existing? Will you take on the terrifying yet liberating responsibility of being free? Will you create your own values, your own standards, your own meaning? Will you wake up every day knowing why? Sartre knew something that most people prefer to ignore. Those who live without a reason are already dead inside. The only question is whether you will keep pretending to be awake or summon the courage to truly awaken, to accept that your life is your responsibility, to stop blaming circumstances and start shaping them, to stop being a product of your environment and begin authoring your own story. The choice is yours. It always has been. It always will be. The only question is, what will you do with this terrible yet wonderful freedom of being human? Because if you don't choose consciously, you're choosing unconsciously. And choosing unconsciously is choosing to die while alive. It's choosing to be a ghost of your own existence. It's choosing to wake up every day without knowing why. Now tell me, will you keep pretending you have no choice? Or have you already realized that your entire life is made up of choices? Write it in the comments. It's your contract with freedom. And if you want to keep hearing truths that will bother you until you truly wake up, subscribe. Here, illusions don't survive.